Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and today it's going to be another Shelly review. And as you can see, it is the Shelly TRV, or a thermostatic radiator valve, which is a product which I think it's going to be widely used in, well, at least in Europe, because I know that we are using a lot of radiators. And I've reviewed similar products from other vendors, but this is the first time that we have the same functionality in the Shelly ecosystem as well. And it is different from some of the other radiator valves that I've reviewed in the past. I mean, obviously, it looks different, and I think it looks better than some of the other models that I have seen. And there are also some interesting features in this one. For example, that it contains a rechargeable battery. So probably it is easier just to go around the house with a power bank and use the USB-C connector and recharge it. But other than that, it is a thermostatic radiator valve, so it has a built-in temperature sensor. You can set a temperature, and based on that, it's going to regulate the valve and it's going to regulate the temperature of your room. And of course, this being Shelly, it has all the supports, for example, the mobile app that you can configure to have cloud access. And you can also have all your local controls. So if you are using Home Assistant, then you can use the Shelly integration to integrate it into your Home Assistant. You can configure it to use MQTT as well, and it's going to use MQTT. And you can control it from Node-RED or any other home automation system that supports MQTT. So I think there are a lot of potentials in here. If I quickly want to show you the product listing, just to go through what Shelly thought about this as the what needs to be highlighted. Just like all the other Shelly products, this is Wi-Fi operated. As I said, it runs on a battery, and they are claiming that it has 2 years battery life with a 3 months heating season. And of course, that's going to depend how much you are changing the temperature and how much it needs to regulate and turn the valve on and off. And of course, it's rechargeable, so I think the battery life is less of an issue because you can always easily recharge this. And you can see the rest of the functions here. It has all the usual functions that we are going to see in the app. Shelly has a separate HNT, external temperature and humidity sensor, that I reviewed in the past, so you can use it as well if you don't want to use the built-in temperature sensor. And you can see the product here. I mean, I have to say that this is a fairly big product and also fairly heavy product. I mean, I have the whole valve attached here, and the reason I'm doing this because in my house I have radiant floor, underfloor and ceiling heating, and actually I do have one single thermostat in the garage, and it would have been a really bit awkward just to film this in the garage. So I thought I'm just going to buy a thermostatic valve and just basically attach to it, because it wouldn't run without the valve itself, because it tries to do a calibration, how much travel there is in the valve. So but basically I just needed to attach something in order to create this recording, and I think it's much easier to do this than try to do it next to a radiator. And you can see the various profiles and how you can use it to save energy. And of course you can monitor. It's going to remember, it's going to store the temperature values that it measures in the room, and also the position of the valve itself. So you have these features on the phone and also on the UI to review them. So you can always go back and see how much you have used, how much your thermostat valve was open or versus closed. As you can see, you can even pair it with a window and a door sensor, so if you want some smart rules to be created. And that's the Shelly HNT that I was just talking about a few minutes ago. So I think there are a lot of options here already what you can do with it. So let's look at the features now. And I mean, of course, with this integration, there are a lot of opportunities, but I'm not going to talk about those in this video because otherwise it's going to be just way too long. Also, I'm not going to go into the integration, but just like with any Shelly products, it integrates with Google Home or Amazon Alexa. So for example, if you have a Google display, or probably the same for the Amazon display, you can use that as well to set the thermostat. Let me quickly go through the main features, or well, basically the how this unit looks like, and also do some sort of unboxing, and you have probably seen the box here in the beginning of the video. So this is a fairly, sizable box, but again, the device is also quite big. And if I remove the valve itself, that you can see that this is the device that you get. I mean, it has this shiny plastic outer case, and then you have this metallic ring here, and you have two buttons. So this is where you're going to set the temperature. So of course you can set it in the app, but you can walk here, and you probably, I don't know if it's going to show in the camera, but there are some, two buttons with an up and a down arrow. So it's very, very subtle, but you can also feel it. And there is a display on the top. So if I press the button, now it shows that the room temperature is 24. And if I press the button again, if I hold the button, then we can see that this is the set temperature. So I can change it by sort of 1 degree. So we are getting 1 degree increment here in the on the display. And also you have this flashing icon, which is going to show you like the state of the valve. And in order to save battery, this display goes blank just after a couple of seconds. Again, if you press it once, it shows you the current temperature, and you've pressed it long, then you can set the temperature. But I guess you're not going to, make these temperature changes a lot in this manually. But, if you are feeling cold, then you can always walk up to it and change the temperature. And of course, you would mount it in a way that this is sort of like, showing up so you can easily read it. And on the business end, you have this screw that screws onto the thermostatic valve. And of course, you need to have this type of plunger thermostatic valves, because this plunger is going to be pressed by the, I have to say, really powerful motor, which is, drives this piston here. And of course, that means that you have to have these type of valves, because in fact, it turns out that my only radiator has a sort of like this screw type thermostatic valve, radiator valve, so I wouldn't be able to mount it there. And so this is just some standard fitting that I picked in my local home improvement store. But you are also getting some additional fittings. So if you have a different valve, as you can see, like, bigger seat or different diameter, you are also getting these. And I mean, I would just suggest you to go online and download the documentation just to understand what are the different versions that it supports with all these different adapters. And I think for some, there are some screws required as well. So for example, to tighten this. But, I bought the one that just simply screws on. And this is how you would install the thermostatic valve on this type of radiator valve. And yeah, and of course you would tighten it even more, but for the demonstration purposes, I think that's going to be sufficient. And then, of course, when you turn it on for the first time, it's going to run calibration. So it will run the full extent of the motor inside, just to learn what is the extent of these valves. And if it doesn't work for some reason, you would get an error like E1, I think, which is the calibration error. But all of these and the setup process is documented in the instruction, and it's it's not particularly complicated. So I don't think that I have to spend a lot of time on it. On the underside, you find a USB-C connector. So this is to charge the device. There is also a reset button, so you can always push that if you need to go back into pairing mode. And there is also another hole here, which is actually a temperature sensor. And I mean, that's pretty much it. And as I said, you get a fairly big document for this one. So it talks about the various different models that you can fit it on. I'm guessing I have this RAV-L type of sensor. Oh no, maybe not even this, because I didn't have to use this ring. So I was just, it was just going straight on. And yeah, I mean, normally you would unscrew the manual turn or knob, and then you get the TVR on. I mean, the documentation is fairly big because you are getting it in the usual 6 languages, but again, all this is downloadable in the website. So if you really want to, study it before you purchase the device, then you can get it there. You can probably see that it has a 64,000 milliamp hour battery. So I think that's, quite a big one. But I'm guessing it takes a lot of energy to move these motors as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this is all going to look like in the app. I've already done the pairing, but again, it uses the same pairing method as any other Shelly device, so I don't think it's worth showing it here in this video. I've already placed the device into my test room, so you can see it here. And in the basic interface, you get to change the values here, so you can change the temperature, and you can also see by the way, you can see that the temperature has been changed, so it shows on the screen as well. And then it also shows the the current temperature in the room. So it's actually quite warm. And probably you can see in the background that I'm showing the web interface as well. And I'm just going to quickly go through it in the mobile app, because I think, just to go through the settings, I'm just going to use the web interface where we have a little bit more screen to look at the details. And if you go into the device, as I said, you can see the various temperature readings. You can change the scale. I mean, I don't have this device for a long time, so it doesn't have an awful lot of history. But here it again shows the state of the valve, so it is 0%, which means that it's, well, it is closed at the moment. But I think if I increase the set temperature to, let's say, well, 30 degrees or high, then yeah, you can see that it goes high. And I don't think it's, I don't know if it's going to come through, but I could hear the motor working. It's not quiet at all. Sorry, it's not loud at all. So I think it's, it's really, really subtle. And now you can see that the valve is let open at 100%. So as I said, you can see the temperature, and you also have a log of the position of the valve. And yeah, you can, tap on it, you can change the view. And I think it was, okay, it was at 2% and it's gone down, and now it's, okay, it was, yeah, 5% for some time. You can download these logs here. I think this download button wasn't available in the past. And you can go into the weekly schedule. So again, you can create multiple schedules. So these are like, like your heating profiles that you can create manually. And you can change the schedules, you can set the schedules on various days of the week, and of course you can add multiple days. So you can have, well, different schedules for each number of the days, or maybe you can have two schedules, one for weekdays and the other one for weekends. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's moving again because since I have activated the schedule now, it is setting the degrees to 23 degrees, which is currently below the room temperature. So it has closed the valve, so because I don't need any more heating. And if I go back to disable, then it goes back to the manual mode, which is 30 degrees at the moment. Oh, no, it switches back to 23. But anyway, I guess you get the idea. I mean, it has the usual programmable thermostat functions, and you can always fall back to the manual function. And as I said, for the settings, I'm just going to use the Windows, well, sorry, not the Windows, but the web application as well. And by the way, since this unit runs on battery, this also goes into sleep from time to time. So if you cannot find your device, by using the IP, then it just means that most probably is in sleep mode. So you can use the buttons to wake it up from sleep, and then this page is going to load. You can see the basic controls here, so you can change the temperature here as well. You can see the room temperature. I mean, here on this screen it shows only 2 digits, but here you can see the temperature in, for example, the room temperature with 1 degree precision. So I think what we can do now is we can go through the various options in the sensor settings. You can create a temperature offset. And again, if you feel that this unit is measuring more or less than what you used to or what your other thermostats are measuring, you can just create a manual offset here. In the weekly schedule, this is exactly the same as what I have shown you before. So you can you can set it to disable, so it becomes a disable mode, or you can select from any of the predefined profiles that you can, of course, edit, and you can create your own profiles as well. Yeah, so yeah, you can rename the profile, and I can set new time, and I can also edit this one. And as you can see, this one says that at 6 a.m. I want 23 degrees and I want it on every single day of the week. So I think you also get the idea how this works. I think it makes sense to create some of these profiles and a holiday profile. So if you leave home, you can just easily go through your thermostats and set them to the holiday profile. In the internet and the security mode, we can see all the usual settings that you see for every single device. So setting the Wi-Fi, the access ID, the Wi-Fi access ID. If you want it to work as an access point, you can do that. SNMP is a time server settings. Obviously, it knows what time it is. MQTT settings, as I said, is you can do MQTT. You can enable this local functionality as well. To be honest, I haven't used COIoT before, so I don't have a lot of information on that. And of course, you can enable or disable the cloud. And finally, you have some actions here. So you have an action where you can see what should happen, where you can specify what should happen if the valve is opened or when the valve is closed. And you can call an HTTP URL. So you can call another device, for example, a Shelly switch, which is going to turn on something or turn off something. So these are the only two events that are available for the thermostatic valve. And in the settings, I just want to go through some of the device-specific settings as well. So the first option is this automatic temperature control. I mean, you can see the various options here, and I think it is more to depending on the difference between the room temperature and the set temperature, it can decide how much to open or close the valves. So you can use this feature. You also have this boost feature. So you can start the boost mode, which is going to open up fully open the valve for 30 minutes, and it will automatically go back to the the settings that are, for example, created by, let's say, your room temperature settings. So again, if you have a really cold room and you really want to heat it up, you can use the boost time instead of messing around with the temperature settings. So you can use that as well. For some radiators, you maybe want to set a different minimum level position. You can also change in 3 different settings how bright this display is going to be. But I would say that even at the high settings, it's not really it's not disturbing at all. So it's not a very bright display, especially that it has a plastic on top of the 7-segment display. And of course, you can rotate the display, so you can rotate it to face this way or the other way around. You can also allow a child lock, so it basically disables the local control. There is a forced close mode, and I think the rest are going to be just general information. So, for example, update the firmware, change the device name, reboot. So these are the same things that you get with any devices. And one more thing is the calibration mode. I mean, calibration is going to be done automatically when the device starts up. So I would recommend you to install the Shelly before you turn it on, because then it would run the initial calibration, so you don't have to calibrate later. But for example, if you decide to move this TRV into a different thermostatic valve, maybe it has slightly different characteristics, you can always recalibrate it here. And since I mentioned the integration of the Shelly thermostatic radiator valve between some of the other Shelly, for example, the external temperature sensors or the motion sensor or the window sensor, I want to talk about the MQTT and the HTTP API as well, because this is where you can learn how you can communicate and send messages to this device. And as you can see, everything is clearly detailed here. What are the various topics, for example, the common topics, and how you send various messages, for example, change the target temperature. But those are also available here. So you can send these through HTTP as well. So for example, if you have a motion sensor And then if that motion sensor detects motion, then you can use the same URL actions saying that if motion is detected, then for example you can send a message to this TVR to change the target temperature to a different value. So at the moment it's set to 24 degrees, and I can send this command, and as you can see it's the IP of the device /settings/thermostat/0, which you can see here. So this is the basically the path, and you have to send two parameters: the target T enabled, which is basically saying that you enable the valve control automatically using the target temperature instead of one of the profiles, and then you also send the target _T, the temperature. So for example, if motion is detected, you want to set the target temperature to 25 degrees, and so you can set it to the URL commands. As you can see, it changes to 25 degrees, or it gets the command and it changes to 25 degrees as well. And for example, if you want to if you also have a window sensor and somebody opens the window, then you can see that on the open action you set another URL, and maybe you reduce the the temperature only down to 18 degrees, because if the window is open, then the heating should be turned off. And now you can see that it changes to 18 degrees, and most probably you can hear the motor start running, or maybe it's already closed. So this is how you can build the integration between the TRV. Oh yeah, you could hear that. So this is how you can build the integration between the TRV and some of the other devices using actions and simple URL actions. So it is really easy to do. And of course, if you use some other devices, or you just want to get the status, you can just send the URL and the IP and /status. You will get a JSON message back, which you can also see here, where the device is going to report all the various things, like what is the target temperature and what is the current position of the valve inside, and whether it's calibrated, and what's the the room temperature, and whether the schedule is active or not. And it even sends other data as well, like what Wi-Fi it is connected to and what is the firmware version, and a lot of other stuff. But this is that is the part of the information which is relevant for the TRV. And of course, you can integrate it into your home automation system, or if you just build a very simple website, you can get this information and then just put the data onto your website as well. And this is how I quickly wanted to mention how you can integrate the TRV with other Shelly devices using simple URL action. But that also concludes the review of this device. If you are interested in this, you will find purchasing links in the video description. But I think that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.